This conference will now be recorded.
Ta-da! Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to try and make this not painful. There's not a ton of changes with the main forms that they resubmitted. I had to actually go through them through the previous versions that they sent out. Oh, you know, I will. Oh, yes, sweetie. Darren, I will definitely blow them up bigger. Very fair statement. So there's a series of forms that they released. Some have differences that are so minor, I had to actually call the commission and get me to send me back the red line versions, because I was like, I'm not reading line by line and comparing. You have to have a version. They're like, oh yeah, we sent that to you before. I'm like, okay, perfect, send it to me again, please. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the main forms that changed with the really small changes first. Get those out of the way, because it will not take long. And then we'll look at the new construction, because that's the biggest change for most people. Okay, does that work for everybody? Okay, so for people online, so I have to sit kind of weird and sideways here for all of you to be able to manipulate this laptop here. If you have questions, if I don't notice that you've typed in the chat, you know, one of the team are watching the screen for me as well. And again, please don't hesitate when you have a question to actually unmute yourself and let us hear your voices. If there is a question in the room, I will go and bring the mic to them, as they all love to be on Oprah, so that you can hear the actual question that they're asking. So let's start with the, they may not be in the order I want here, but this is a really small laptop. Okay, that's a really big screen in front of me, not helpful here. Just a second here. Okay, so let's start with the equipment schedule. Okay, can you guys see this? Okay. No, I don't want notifications. Okay, so on my physical forms I printed as well, so I'd have them in front of me, I have highlighted the changes so that I, in theory, don't miss telling you something. So on the equipment schedule, the only change is right here at the bottom. So you'll see on the versions that I have here, these are the ones that came to me from the commission, they're yellowed, which makes it very simple for you to actually see the difference. The forms that are on web forms that are on .loop, obviously they're not highlighted, because that would be weird and awkward with your clients. So the difference is now it says to be as follows versus unacceptable, because before it was yes or no, that was it, that was your only choice. So now it might be, well, we'll pay half, or we'll pay 1 year and you pay 2. It could be whatever the heck you want, right? The seller will pull it out and we'll pull it around. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Again, the big note is that if an agreement is in place, any changes to this equipment schedule shall be made by amendment. Okay, so you would say to be as follows, and then there would be an amendment that follows it. You can't, you're not amending it. Yeah, you're not amending it, you know. Yeah, well, you can write it out here, but then you would want to formalize it with an amendment to be sure. Okay, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that? Write it out here and see attachment. Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, to me, it's confusing because it says shall be made by amendment. So unless, hang on, let me think about this for a second. No, we don't have to do it that way. It would be to be as follows, and you fill it in below. Sorry, my brain turned off. It feels like a Monday to me. So you would fill it in below because the seller has to sign off on the bottom. The bottom signatures are the disposition. If you then change it from what you have signed here, you don't go back and scratch this out. You then make the second change by amendment. Sorry, brain tired. Okay. Holly, just a second. Wait. Holly's got a question. Wait, I got to get up. I got to wander.
Okay, so all of those, I want everything except for, I don't know, the heat pump or something, right? So instead of me putting acceptable, I'm going to go or, and then
Option B.
Right.
Option B.
And then say, heat pump to be removed by seller on or before closing. And then.
No. What is wrong with that particular? You went, wait. Oh,
Okay. We're getting rid of the heat pump.
you opened the door, honey. You opened the door.
I know. Okay, so we're getting rid of the heat pump. So we're getting rid of the heat pump somehow, but I have to actually make a formal amendment.
No. You just unlistened to what I corrected. Because I was having I'm going to call it a Monday brain because that's what it feels like for me today. It's been kind of a day. My apologies. So let's say we have a propane tank and a heat pump lease. Okay. So the seller has put that they want the buyer to assume everything. Right? And the buyer goes, yeah, no. And so on the bottom, they're going to say to be as follows. Buyer will assume the propane tank. Seller will pay out in full the lease on the heat pump, proof of payment to be delivered to the lawyer by no later than X date, not on or before closing. And then that's fine. So then they go, so that's, everybody agrees to that. Then a week later, they get their payout on the heat pump and the sellers go, oh my goodness. Wow, that was a lot more money than I thought. So then they go, no, we only want to pay 50% of that. Then we do an amendment. Okay? Clear like mud? Yeah, much better. Clear like mud? Have we started? I don't hear anything. Does everybody not hear anything? I'm talking. Can anybody else hear me, or have I just been, Tony said he can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so Tony, I maybe you have me on mute, or maybe your volume's not up on your device. I don't know what else to tell you. That is a fair comment. Renee just said, well, since he can't hear you, you might need to type that into the chat box. Tony, that was perfect. Thank you. Right now, I'm trying to. Honestly. What did Derwin just say? What? We can play it on mute. Trust me, it doesn't work very well, Derwin. You should know. Okay, so is everyone good on the equipment schedule? Yes. Wait. I'm trapped in here.
The new forms question, it's just more of a clarification. If you don't have leased equipment, just don't bother filling out an equipment schedule, or do we need a blank one?
No, you absolutely do not need a blank one under any circumstances. That is foolishness. Okay. Okay, we have some grumbling in the room here, just in case you were wondering what all that noise was. More importantly is if you tick that you want an equipment schedule in 3.1 and 4.1, I'm looking for it. So you either got to counter it out or you got to amend it out, because I'm looking for it. Then you have to sign a blank one. You might do that instead of an amendment.
Does that apply to
No, because it has if applicable. Equipment schedule says, ta-da, I will be giving you one. There's a difference. Okay, so now as a squirrel side moment, if I'm a seller and a buyer asks me for one, I would want to counter that I don't, if they ticked it, that I don't have them, so that they don't think I had them and I didn't give it to them. To protect my seller, okay? Okay. Yes. Okay, equipment schedule. That was exciting. That was way more exciting than I thought. Okay. I did forget who was in the room, Holly. I'm so sorry. Okay, so PDS. Okay, brace yourselves, guys. This is the same for both PDS, vacant land, and regular. You ready? It's pretty exciting. Hold your breath. Ta-da! Property address is on page 2. No, apparently not. Oh, wait, yes, okay. Oh, God, why am I seated in the, you guys should see this production, I tell you, online.
I just relisted a home that was listed in October, and I didn't do a new PDS because she had filled it all out, do I have to do a new one now just to put that property address up there?
Technically, no. However, most buyer's agents are going to want the PDS date to line up with the listing date because there could have been a material change. So you might as well just get her over with and, you know, Holly has a question too, just a second. Yeah, I could just reach over.
So if you have to make an amendment to your existing PDS because something has come up, I can still use my existing PDS and not have to use this new one, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
So there is a myth that existing documents have to be redone in the middle. So there's a new version of the seller brokerage agreement that we're going to look at with two pretty exciting changes. You might want to brace yourself for those ones too. You do not need to go back and re-sign a listing in the middle of a listing, but any listing signed from this day forward has to be on the new forms. Okay? Okay. I'm gonna get my steps in with these guys here. Okay, so the PDS for vacant land, ready, property. That's our big change. Okay, so we're moving on. Ta-da! Was that exciting? You never thought you'd hear me talk so little about something, did you? I know. Okay, so before we do the agreement, let's do the seller designated and the buyer designated and get those looked after. Move my little thingy over here. Which one have I got here? No, I don't want that one. Two. Okay, so buyer designated brokerage agreement. You're all familiar with this. Very small change, but not relevant. So under the designated agent, so because of the way designated agency is, they've added a provision here to say as the designated agent to serve as the sole agent for the buyer, subject to clause 8. Does anybody know what clause 8 is? It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be transaction brokerage. And we all know what Ann thinks of transaction brokerage. So you're basically always going to be in this one because you're all going to make everybody a customer, right? So it's just basically a statement, okay? The C addendum is if additional space is required. That part was already there, but yet they highlighted the whole line. Really, the only change is the front part. Does anybody have any questions online? If all that was there before was if additional space is required, C addendum. That's what I was saying. I don't know why they highlighted. I can't undo their highlighting. They should have only highlighted this piece, like the top, subject to clause 8, and then they should have stopped the highlight. But they did not. So then the next change, that was it. That was the big change. Because I think it came out, it was in the common law form, but it wasn't in the, it got missed in that you are stating right up at the front that as a designated agent, you are working as a designated agent, as that sole agent first.
Does that not say designated brokerage designated?
Holly's asking a question that's not a question yet.
No. Okay, so our broker.
Wait.
Our broker designated form, does it no longer say designated anymore?
Yes, honey. Yes.
We have to have.
It's saying that you will only work as a designated agent for that consumer and that you will not, they're basically linking the designated agent over to clause 8. That link was missing. So it basically changes nothing because you can't go into transaction brokerage without me involved or so yeah, so and then the seller designated agreement, That's the seller brokerage. That's not the one I want. I really cannot see all of my forms here. Okay. So the seller designated, okay, I don't know why this one's not highlighted, but work with me, people, here. I'll show you the difference. So right here, we have it here as the designated agent to work only as the agent for the seller. Same change on those. Now there is a change on page 2. So it's clause C and D of 3.2. To place a sold sign on the property once the conditions unrelated to title have been met. So it used to stop at the word property. Now it's saying you have to be firm, but not closed. And the reason, so in different areas of the province, there are different rules about the publication of sold prices. And so the question is, at what point are you putting sorry, Vicky's phone, computer.
My phone, my arm,
everything's ringing. So it's to clarify that as soon as all the conditions unrelated to title are met, that you are entitled and the seller has agreed to allow you to put your cute little sold signs up. Okay. And then D, they've added, it always used to say to show the property at times acceptable to the seller and stopped. Now it says, and if any tenants. That part's been added. Tenants. No. And if any tenants. Tenants was not there. And seller, it stopped at seller. Okay, that's it. That's our changes on that one. Any questions online? Okay. Jump in if I missed you. Okay, my agreement to purchase and sale. Okay. So again, you're going to be very excited about this one. It's riveting. So here at the bottom in 1.3, it says in excess of the remuneration. Okay, so this is our deposit clause. So basically now what it is saying is that if you had a $10,000 deposit come in and you had your commission owed was $5,000, before we used to have to get letters signed by the lawyers, by both lawyers, directing the brokerage to send the remaining $5,000 back, to the seller in order to have to close the deal, or to the buyer to close the deal, right? So the buyer gave you $10,000, right, as a deposit, okay? Well, I mean, in theory, right? Work with me here. South Shore, we see deposits 25, 50,000. They're huge. Go to the Valley, they're $500, right? It just depends on where you are. Well, they're 500 in Sydney. Anyway, it's all good. Depends on where you are. But in order to move money around, depending on the terms of the agreement, we used to have to actually get signed consent and letters on letterhead, email letters on letterhead from lawyers on both parties to be able to release the excess funds in time to allow it to close. So what it means is, so let's say your buyer had $10,000 they gave to us to hold the property, and we're only entitled to 5 of that as, say, our commission on the deal. Well, that other 5 is their closing costs, it's their down payment, it's their something, it's stuck on our trust account. We couldn't get it to them without the lawyers signing off on a bunch of paper, because we didn't have quite enough paper that we needed that. And so now this basically says that is in excess of the remuneration, including HST, so that we don't need that direction anymore. By default, the consumers are agreeing that excess funds can now be sent via trust to the different parties as required. But if somebody asked you what that is, you would want to understand what it is, right? So if you had a buyer and you were writing this, go, well, if I put 10,000, well, how am I going to get, I need part of that for this. You could say, don't worry, this clause will mean that Royal LePage will send that extra $5,000 to your lawyer to cover the closing costs. Does this make sense to everyone? Is that a better practical explanation? Sorry, it all makes sense in my head. That's really the problem. And yeah, so that's the change for the APS. But they are, like, I mean, they are relevant. Like, it's just important because you're not going to notice them if we don't do this, right? Okay. I have no questions online so far. Either that or they've all fallen asleep on me. Okay, so now let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about new construction, because this is the big change, okay? So that is Form 403. Why are they not all here? Well, I don't really, there's no red line for this one because the whole thing is new. Okay, so first change is that you're going to see that it looks like the regular agreement of purchase and sale, okay? And the whole front of the old new construction form was the math thing that, God help you if you didn't do it on web forms, right? Because the math was like, you know, a thing, right? So now, obviously, if a builder's using their own forms, you know, that's different, right? We're working based on standard forms. So let's look at the document. So total number of pages still applies. So one of the big things you're going to see in this agreement for new construction is that before, if you didn't have all the schedules from the builder when you went to write the deal, your agreement was a schmozzle because you had to be determined and you were randomly picking dates and, oh, they don't have those things. And it was like a whole big thing. So now they've made it much, much simpler. It feels like a lot of pieces of paper, but it actually is very simple. Each piece has its own purpose. So I'm hoping it'll make sense to everybody. So the notes of what are at the top of this agreement of purchase and sale are not the same as what are at the top of a regular agreement of purchase and sale. Okay? Because the regular one says mini mobile, multi-unit, equipment, resale condo. Well, those things are not here, right? They are specific to this particular type of agreement. So, for example, if you had the builder's plans and specifications when you wrote the offer, you would tick this here. You don't need to list them in that weird thing that was formatted so bizarrely and it went on 2 lines and was annoying. So if you already knew if they handed you the restrictive covenants in their package, you could tick it here and then you would add all your pages and total up your numbers. And of course, we would initial all of these extra pages, of course. Naturally, you all know that, to the agreement. They're laughing at me, people. So the top part, all of this looks very much like a regular APS, like the deposit, etc. Now, I have to tell you, I have a small pet peeve, and I have 20 people who I have a captive audience with right now, so I'm just going to tell you now. And then when you see it, it'll become your pet peeve when you get an offer as a seller. So everybody writes, the deposit will be paid to Keller Williams Select Realty and Trust. And then it says in trust. So I can't tell you why it drives me crazy, but it does drive me crazy. So you literally just need to say ABC Realty in trust, because there's no option to not be in trust. Okay, so everything else in the wording of this is very standard in terms of the regular agreement. So I'm not going to go through it in every section because it's not different. Okay, closing and conveyance. So this is a little bit different than the regular APS, except in this one, on the regular APS for like resale property, it has a blank, right? Unless otherwise provided as follows. It's no different. It just looks really different because they put lines in. They didn't put lines in the other form. So the lines are going to make you think this is something new. This is not new. This is where you're going to write professionally cleaned, you know, builder to remove debris, I don't know, whatever the heck you want to put, okay? So, but you know, the accumulation of rubbish clause, all that kind of stuff is still there, okay? So we'll go back to the top. So literally all of this stuff is almost identical to the regular APS. I want you to read it at your leisure, obviously, but there's nothing here that's really different, okay? You're going to put your warranty deed, unless it's something else, which would be very unlikely in new construction, but you know, I don't know. So the seller's obligation, plans and specifications, everything will be done. National Building Code of Canada, subdivision requirements, etc. All that stuff is pretty standard, okay? So then we're going to move in. One of the things you'll notice, similar to the new form of the agreement of purchase and sale, is the requirement to put 4,000 initials beside every item in the agreement is gone. Okay. So before, you had to have an initial here beside 3.2, or like, why? Why? I don't understand. So now it's one or the other. And then your 3.3 is the same idea as your 3.1 in your regular agreement of purchase and sale, where the buyer is asking the seller to give me X or Y. But it's listing some things so that you don't have to draft, oh, what do I think the builder should give me, right? Because unfortunately, people don't do, I would say the average agent does maybe one new construction a year unless they actually do new construction. So they're not super familiar. They're not qualified to do it. They're just not as familiar with what they should be asking for. So this is giving you some suggestions, right? Remember, equipment schedule will continue to haunt you no matter which form of agreement of purchase and sale you use. Holly, is that a question? What is it?
Just in this, but in general, not just.
I'm going to repeat her question because I don't want to get up.
The equipment schedule in the regular sale and this one. If you have ticked that off schedule out of town, contracts, if there is no.
Okay, I answered. I answered this already today, but I will answer for you again because I love you. Yeah. So if you tick it, now you're supposed to be relying on the MLS listing cut that says yes or no. Okay. So if you see one, then if it says yes, then you should tick yes. If it says no, then you should not tick it. What's happening is people are just ticking every little box. So if you tick a box and then you say to the seller's agent, so I call Vicky and I'm like, Vicky, where's my leased equipment schedule? And you go, well, there's no leased equipment. And then you go, yeah, that's not going to work for my broker. It is actually, there's an amendment, there's a publication that came out from NSREC to remind people, because agents were not believing their brokers, that you have to either counter it or amend it, because you have just said it's attached.
Yeah.
And people say, well, it's just the equipment schedule. Well, what if it said you had a $10,000 ETS system to take over? It's important, right?
And I get that part, but it says the seller shall provide to the buyer. And they tick everything off. Well, they might have an equipment schedule, so let's put it there just in case.
But then you have to amend it or counter it out. You cannot, if it says it's there, I am looking for it. It is a part of the contract that is missing.
On the listing cut, it's blank.
It's not possible. You can't do blank on the listing cut. It's not a possibility. Okay, so final plans and specifications, etc. Other is going to be, I don't know, trim package details, or I don't know, whatever. Like there's, and if you need more, you can see C clause 12. If you have to add another thing, or see another attached schedule, and at the top you have other here. So whatever you've listed, like if you had them at the beginning, you would list them. You don't list them twice. They're only at the top if they start with the deal. Everyone understands that? Oh God, why is that there? Okay, go away. Okay. So 3.3, it's not a Mac.
No, I know. It's not
3.3 is what you are asking the seller to give you. So the general suggestion is that the date for that would match the date. You have one date for which you want to exchange information, and then one date by which you are to complete all of your things. So a lot of people match their deposit with their seller production date, because that's the 1 day documents and money and everything swaps. And then you have one date to remember there, and then your date to finish everything is one other date. Okay, that's just a suggestion. So your buyer's conditions, again, very similar, except that the items listed are more relevant to new construction than the regular list in the general APS. Okay, does anybody online have any questions at all? I'm just plowing along here. I know, I put them all to sleep. Nope, all good. Okay, thank you so much. Just making sure. So the site inspection stuff is very similar. So one big change is the change orders form. So we're going to go to that form after, but it says any additions. Okay, go over here. Oops. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the materials and or labor agreed to using change order or form supplied shall become and form part of an agreement. So the idea is that you're not doing amendments to change the structure of the building. You would be using an amendment to change a financing date. You would be using an amendment to change the name of the buyer or the seller. The change order is we now want, I don't know, 6 inches of topsoil versus the 3 or whatever the number is that they give you. I can't remember. Whatever somebody tell me, it doesn't matter. But that's where that would go, okay, versus a bunch of amendments. Because then think about the logic of being able to put that deal together and look at it and be able to track what is happening to the actual property that you're selling, okay? Oh, now we want the paint to be sunrise gold, whatever, right? Okay. So delays, you will note that the per diem is gone. If you want a per diem, which I have not honestly seen anyone actually successfully get a per diem in a long time, someone can correct me on that, but I have not seen anything but a 0 in that per diem clause in about 12 years. I think they just basically decided to get rid of it. They're not doing it. If you have a lawful instruction to write a per diem clause, then you would add it under additional provisions. And you would basically copy the old one. That's basically what you would do. And then they will counter it out. So let's just be aware of that. Pre-occupancy inspection. Now, one of the other things I will note when we go back to the buyer's conditions, I just have to move over here for 1 second. So now we have the other here. And the most common thing that I would recommend that you by default add under the buyer's conditions would be what? Any guesses? What do you not have a right to automatically in an agreement of purchase and sale on new construction? Anybody know? Any of my online people know the answer? What do you not have the God-given right to do on new construction? Enter, says Karen. No, that's not no. Yes, but no. I'm talking about a condition. Survey, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Tammy's going to answer. Building inspection. Dun, dun, dun. You have no right to do a building inspection or ask for a paperclip without writing it in here. It's not a condition. You did not ask for it. That's pre-occupancy inspection. That's your walkthrough.
That's my walkthrough. Because it said it's a sit-by.
Right, but it's still not the same. Like if you can go back, but that's your walkthrough now. Like now, what are you doing?
So the buyer's conditions actually has a date. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Put your inspection.
I would put inspection under 4.1 under other. Right. So the building inspection, you may also add, if you've got well and septic schedule by default, that's covering that part. But if you want to, technically the building inspection clause includes sewer. Please be advised, I do not need to see schedules that list the sewer as a building inspection. It's a building inspection, and that means inspecting any element of the building.
But why would you add it?
How do you know this form? It includes one that is ready to go, right?
Oh, this is.
New construction means never occupied by a human. Doesn't mean that you're starting with dirt. Okay, so if it's basically built, okay. Now I can honestly tell you, this is my personal experience. It's very rare that building inspectors do not find problems on new construction, right? So, and it just gives you a different power to get things done by the builder prior to occupancy walkthrough, right? So hang on, Vicky's got a question.
Yeah, okay, so I've only ever done new construction for a building that's already been built. So if I'm guiding a client,
we do this right away, would we do this right away or do we wait? Like, I'm not.
I would do it right away.
We do it right away before the home is built.
No, okay, wait, sorry. You just said the house was built.
No, it's the only one I've ever done.
Okay.
The house was built.
So you may not add it. If it's not built, then you wouldn't need it. You would only use 8.1.
Exactly.
But if the house is built,
Then I would use that.
right, because the question is, so prior to closing, the buyer and the seller shall establish a date for the pre-occupancy inspection of the property. The inspection shall include a walk through the property and identification of any deficiencies. The buyer may be assisted, but this does not give me the right to terminate my deal. Right? This clause says that, that the identification of deficiencies, that doesn't say what it says in 4.1, which is that I have to be satisfied.
Okay, so you don't have to be satisfied.
Well, these deficiencies are things the builder will fix, like, oh, there's a chip in the paint, and that's typically, now you can do your building inspection then, but it's a really difficult place to be amending an agreement on inspection deficiencies at 8.1 stage. And I would argue, if I worked for the seller, that you don't have the right to terminate based on this, because that's not written here.
Yeah.
That would be my position as a seller's agent. If you're a buyer's agent and you bring a building inspector through, I'd say, that's really great. Lovely. I'll put it on my to-do list.
Building from ground up.
Hold on, people can't hear you.
So you're building from ground up. So you kind of have to rely on that though. Or can you?
So you don't do buyer's condition from the ground up?
From the ground up, you could add it, but the problem is you have to pick a date. You just wouldn't be firm. Honestly, ground up, I would probably do 8.1, right? But it's, some houses that are already built, they've been there for 2 years, right? There's no water running through them, etc. There's all kinds of other things that can happen. It depends on the situation. You just need to be aware that as a seller's agent, I would not perceive that that gives you the right to terminate to me. And I would fight you tooth and nail over your deposit if you wanted to walk. There would have to be, right.
For anybody who want to terminate when they've spent 6 months building a house. I would assume.
Right.
It would have to be.
So that, sometimes there's SOPP or financing conditions. You just need to be aware that that's where the other is. There are a lot of people and a lot of consumers who are not interested in a building inspection on new construction because they believe that the city check is good and enough. And that's their choice and they're right. Okay. Janice, yes. Okay. So you were guessing correctly. Perfect. Yes. Okay. So just making sure you're not asking another question. So does everybody understand that as a suggestion? Okay. So new home warranty, this is a great new way that the clause is written. And the reason being is because the way it was written in the old thing, some new home warranties are for 1 year, some are for 3, some are for 5, some are for 7, some are for 10, some are for X on whatever. There's a whole bunch of different private, they're not all Atlantic new home warranties. There's Lux and a bunch of other ones. So this allows you could be buying from a private person who's building, who's going to put a 1 year warranty on it. I don't know what good that is if they don't have an insurance company, but we're moving on from that conversation. So here's the builder or the warranty company. Who is that with? Holdbacks. So Lisa's just saying sometimes there's a 1 year builder warranty, 7 year. It just depends on the thing. You could list them both. There could be nothing. There could be none, right? So that's where you put those details, and it allows you to have a really quality conversation and remind you to talk to the seller's agent to provide that information. And if you're listing new construction, I would recommend that you're reading and you're really familiar with these forms to know what buyers are going to be looking for from you, right? Because it works on both ways. So the holdbacks clause is written in a much clearer way for the consumer to understand what is actually going to happen, especially under the deficiencies section. Should a deficiency item not be completed by the date designated, a holdback shall be at the buyer's option, be released to the buyer pending completion by newly agreed date, etc. And that's, again, to make sure that the consumer knows that the builder does have to come back and deal with it. So again, if we go back to 8.1, you can argue that this is fully covered by under here, the difference being you can't walk. So it just depends on what you want with your client, right? And I will tell you, we've dealt with properties that are younger than 3 years old that have had their entire sewer lines replaced. We've had 2 of them because the subcontractor or the guy backfilled whatever who's doing whatever, backfilled boulders on top of the sewer line and displaced it. So don't assume because it's new that it's perfect, okay? Because especially when you get into subdivisions, there are so many subtrades and everybody's working their best, but mistakes happen. There's no one who was intentionally driven over and squashed your sewer line. That was not their plan, obviously. They'd like to continue to work, but it does happen, okay?
Just a question on the pullback.
Hold on, hang on, Lisa, wait.
What I've ran into in the past with a holdback on something that you've asked the builder to include is when they price that addition, it's being priced as a wholesale service by the builder. So this holdback where it's protecting your buyer to be able to have it potentially released to the buyer, it essentially may end up costing the buyer more money because they're not getting that wholesale service price.
But that's when you would be having a conversation on, that's happening on closing. You're talking to your client's lawyer and saying, can you confirm, pricing, or I'm going to get my own independent quote in because I feel like this is based on them sending Bob, who, works on all my sites over, right? There's no 100% black and white here. I just need you to understand the forms because these are conversations, right? So then lot grading, right? Again, the whole concept of how this is laid out is it's sort of broken down to like, yeah. I know, terrible. So Holly just said, I see honor before closing. So the holdbacks, it's broken down into sections, site inspection. So you're seeing the stages of the property build is how they've logically organized these clauses. So lot grading, again, landscaping and lot grading, there are regular holdbacks for those because they're going to build the house next door and they need to drive over the front of your lot and, blah, blah, and they're not going to do it. And the lawyers sort that stuff out. So your additional conditions, this is where you can, become a wordsmith or call me. Lawyer review. Please remember your lawyer review date should always be your longest condition date. You should not have condition dates that end before your lawyer review. On anything, period. This is a general comment. So if your buyer condition date is the 20th of February, your lawyer review should not be the 15th.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
You say yeah, but that's not what I see on all the deals.
Oh.
Okay, so property migration, can you imagine how this used to be like a whole page? Remember this used to be a whole page,
God, yes.
right? So it's the same as the new form for us. Title investigation, this is all the same yada yada as before. Miscellaneous, it's the same yada yada as the regular APS. I'm such a detailed broker today with you. Yada yada, it's all the same. Okay. Agency, of course, we have 17.1 and 17.2. Please note that you cannot, I have no idea why this is even here on the new construction form, because you cannot represent a builder and be in a client relationship with a buyer. It's impossible. You can't do it. It's against the rules. So I have no idea why this is here. I feel like they just literally cut and paste this in.
Buyers don't understand that.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're moving on to that. And then the 18 and 19 are exactly the same as the current APS, some more yada yada. Okay. So any questions on the actual form for new construction that I have not yet answered? I'm going to go into the new forms that go with it. But in terms of the main guts of the agreement, is everybody clear? Okay. No, I have a question.
I have a quick question.
Is that Janice?
Yes, it is. So in the construction form, sorry, I'm going to turn down my volume. So in the new construction form where it talks about the builder's warranty, if we get something in writing, do we add that to the form or what do we do with that? Like,
If they give you a certificate or something in advance?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that you need to attach it. If they've signed the agreement, they're agreeing to do it.
Okay.
I would say that that's more of a comfort thing. unless
Okay.
there are terms to it you want your client to be able to review. Like if there's a lot of fine print or something. New home warranty. Yeah. Does that help, Janice?
Yeah, it's different. It would be new home warranty. It's just with the builder, and I know sometimes builders offer different things in terms of the warranty. So just wanting to make sure that it's all
I
in
would
writing
say,
from the buyers.
I mean, you can add that as a provision, you know, to be provided in your other, under the conditions for the seller to provide the details. If we go back to the agreement.
Yep.
That I just lost.
3.1, right?
So if we go here, no, 3.1 is on the regular one. So here you could put other, copy of, details of home warranty, and then under 4.1 under other, you could say that the buyer to approve the details of it, like to be satisfied, right? Does that make sense? Hello?
Hello?
Does that make sense?
I didn't hear the last part under 4.1.
Okay, what I said was you would add in 3.3 that the seller, being the builder, is to provide the, the details and the specifics of the home warranty. And then under 4.1, you would add that the seller has to approve that, that by, they have to be satisfied with that by this date we've got up here in 4.1.
Okay.
If it's a standard home warranty like Lux or Atlantic, I wouldn't add that. The seller is going to be not happy with you. And those are what they are. It's when you get an individual builder offering something that I would say you would want to be satisfied, because then it would fall under lawyer review as a document for them to review.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's specifically what I'm wondering. But this is different outside the home warranty or Lux.
Yes. Okay. Clear?
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So the next one is the HST rebate schedule. Sounds really exciting, doesn't it? Why are all my documents not there? It is form 405. 405. Okay. So this is basically the front of the old document and the bottom left of page 2 of the old document. So at the top, it's asking about the rebate, right? Do they qualify? Do they not qualify? Going through that. It clarifies that the HST is included in the purchase price right away. Okay. So you tick the little box. Then you can't really do 3.1 until you've done 4.1. I don't understand the order there, but because you need math number to come from there to move up to the rebate section. So, and please, I mean, you can do this on a calculator, obviously, but 99.9% of people plug this into web forms because it does all of the math for you. And so you put the price in, and then, ta-da, you get a number, and you take this number and you put that number up here in 3.1. Federal portion of the HST is right here. 4.3, or federal rebate, just a minute. Federal HST rebate is, the bottom number that you get in A or B in 4.4. Now, I think it may auto-populate. I'm not sure. I haven't typed one in. Okay? Is that good? Now, please note, the purchase price is less than $517,000. Beyond that, I'm assuming there is no HST rebate. It's in red, so you don't, if your purchase price is $900,000, do not attach this form. There's no rebate. Yeah, it'll say that it's directed to the seller, right? But that's Revenue Canada. That's not us. We don't. It's based on the Tax Act. We have nothing to do with that. Okay. Okay. So very simple form. Really not complicated. It's a separate form. Okay. Because what was happening with the tax number previously is if you didn't qualify, like you're like, do I qualify? Do I not qualify? What's the purchase price? Was it like, so people were taking it and then they were wrong and then it was a mess. So now it's a separate thing. So we've got the HST rebate form. Then you have your 443 is your deficiencies form. So the wording on this is to say the buyer and the seller based on the agreement of purchase and sale known as blank. And if there's a change order, you would add that. And these are the items to be addressed and what is the value. Okay, so now a lot of builders have their own deficiency forms, right? But if you're working with a builder who is using standard forms, this is what you would be doing when you do your 8.1 walkthrough and coming up with numbers. Okay. Now, you could also use this depending on what it is after your building inspection. You don't have to do an amendment if the stuff is simple, right? And you might just come up with a total number based on trying to itemize each item. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? Excellent. Holly says, I will. When I go to use it, stay tuned. Okay. The deposit disclaimer. This is one, we've actually had this form the whole time. Didn't look like this. None of you even know it's there. And the only time you need this form is when you are not putting it in a brokerage trust account. If you are dealing with a builder, you'll see it most often with high-rise condo developments where the developer is going to hold the trust money, not the real estate company or a law firm. So this one says the Nova Scotia Real Estate Trading Act requires all brokerages to maintain a trust account. The brokerage is charged with the responsibility of collecting, protecting, and properly dispersing deposit funds held in connection with any real estate transaction in which it is involved. It is recommended for the protection of the buyer that deposits be placed in a brokerage's trust account. The buyer agrees to allow the seller to have the deposit and use these funds. Allowing the seller to use the deposit may result in difficulty or inability to recover the funds. So if you will typically see, if you received a, and this doesn't go anywhere, this is an internal document, it doesn't go to the seller. So if you wrote an offer on new construction, again, typically it's condo buildings that you see these forms. And you have to use their forms. They don't give you a choice. That's the deal. This is what the builder, the developer is using. And it says that ABC Development Company is going to hold the trust funds and they're going to use 50% of it to pay for whatever, further construction or whatever. And we promise that if we don't finish, we'll give it back to you. Or not, whatever, right? You want to have this form signed and put in your file. So that if that developer is delayed, it doesn't come together, it falls apart, the building falls down, they go bankrupt, I don't know, whatever. The buyer needs to walk because the development took so long and they can't get they terminate the deal, but the builder says, yeah, well, your money's it's in motion right now, I can't give it to you, right? This is like a regular waiver for anything else. Oh, I would like to not do a building inspection, sir. You would sign a waiver. This is the same idea, okay? I would want to see this in a file where the agreement of purchase and sale calls for the deposit to be held by the vendor personally, not the vendor's brokerage. So if it's ABC Development Company and they've hired Royal LePage and Royal LePage is holding trust money, I don't want this. Right. I only want this if ABC Development Company is the one holding the money. Does that make sense to everybody? This is very important in protecting your collective tukuses. And form 442 this is our change order. So very, very similar. It looks almost identical to the deficiency sheet. So if you get your agreement of purchase and sale done and then the client says, oh, I really like a new mantle in the living room. And the builder says, sure, I can do that. That would be $5,000, please. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. I have no idea how much it costs to build a mantle. It's got stone and it is, this is that, this is that. So you're going to describe it. Maybe there's a drawing attached. Maybe you say see attached schedule, whatever. The builder prices it and it gets added to the agreement of purchase and sale. This all forms the agreement. And everybody signed it, the buyer and the seller, so everybody agrees to the terms. It's very simple. It's very clean. Okay? That's it. That's your new forms. Does anybody have any other questions? Holly says she was scared for nothing. Oh, Derwin says, if you amend something, you should amend the lawyer clause as well. Yes, absolutely. Excellent advice, Derwin. When you extend, and this is in general, not just on new construction, if you extend septic, if you extend inspection, you should always extend your lawyer review so that you have the right to get their opinion and or terminate the deal if you're dealing with wording, et cetera, especially in new construction as well. Yeah, so you should always extend that as you go. So so does anybody have any other questions other than Derwin's wise words? Thank you very much. Okay, guys, well, that took an hour, actually. So I really appreciate your time, and hopefully these will be a little less intimidating when you go forward. This is recorded for all of its whateverness, and so if you ever need to listen to it, Erin will have it on. I don't know where she puts these things, but Weebly, I believe. And of course, if you have any questions on a one-on-one basis, please never ever hesitate to reach out to me or one of your great broker team. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.